Good afternoon. I'd like to call the April 2017-18 meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee to order. Will the recording secretary please call the roll?
Here.
Here.
Here. The item before us today is item 1A, interview and recommendation of the members for the Committee on Accreditation. Our task today is to recommend to the full commission 2 individuals to fill the K through 12 vacancies and 1 individual to fill the higher education vacancy on the Committee on Accreditation, each of whom would be appointed for a 4-year term. In addition, we may, if we wish, appoint individuals to the alternate pool to serve in the event of a vacancy on COA. And Cheryl Hickey will take us through the process. Ms. Hickey, please begin.
Yes. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for agreeing to be part of this ad hoc committee and coming in a day early from the commission meeting. I know you take a lot of time out of your busy schedules to be here, so thank you. We appreciate it. Today, you will be interviewing 6 finalists to fill 3 vacancies on the Committee on Accreditation. We're scheduled to begin our first interview at 2:45, but before that, I want to give you a little background information first. So each year, the Commission interviews and appoints 3 individuals to serve new or continuing 4-year terms beginning July 1 of each year. The membership of COA is equally balanced, so we have 12 total, 6 from K-12 and 6 from higher education. The leadership is also equally balanced with 1 co-chair from each, and they co-chair the meetings, so that has been very helpful. So this year the vacancies include 1 member from the IHE community and 2 from K-12. So every year it kind of flips. And their terms are up as of June 30th of this year. The nominations process began in the fall, and we closed the application period in February. Early February. We announced the vacancies in the PSD News each week for at least 2 months, and we spread the word with many groups and meetings and conferences that we all go to, so we can get as many applicants as we can. And the result this year was that we had 9 applicants. And the first step was for the nominating panel to cull that down to the finalists that you see before you today. So we have a nominating panel, and their names are listed on page 5 of the item. So Ann Jones, who used to be one of the co-chairs of COA, she's a chief of staff at the University of California at Berkeley. And then Eric Casillas, who used to be a commissioner. Joyce Abrams, who was on the COA for many, many years. And then Carol Hodges, who's a dean and very involved in accreditation. She's one of our team leads. And so they all have extensive experience in accreditation. And so they're the nominating panel, and they looked at all the applications, and they talked and decided which ones go forward to you. They were charged with giving you 2 candidates for each vacancy. So that's why there's 6. In addition to recommending the appointment of 3 individuals for COA to the full commission, you may also appoint any of the applicants or recommend appointment of any of the applicants you interview today to the alternate pool. This pool is used by the executive director in the event of an unscheduled vacancy, and it's helpful when we have a healthy size alternate pool because the director can consider the balance issues when we need to appoint individuals to serve out unexpected vacancies. In addition to expertise in preparing future educators and expertise needed by new K-12 practitioners for today's schools, it's important to ensure that balance on the committee to ensure a wide variety of perspectives are represented. No COA member serves as a representative of their employer. So they don't represent that, but rather serve because they have a totality of expertise. Balance issues to consider are geographic representation, gender, racial and ethnic balance, segmental representation. So you see privates, who am I missing? CSU, as well as any other K-12. And then size of the institution is often something to consider, and public versus private, all those kinds of considerations are open for you. So of the 6 applications, 4 are K-12, 2 are from higher ed. Of the IHEs, 1 is from an independent institution, and 1's from a CSU. Of the K-12, 1 is a college and career coach, 1 is a district STEM coordinator, and 2 are induction coordinators for their districts. I'm happy to report that all of the applicants have participated in some fashion in the Commission's accreditation system. 2 of the individuals are current incumbents. Kelly Scon will complete her first term in June and is eligible for reappointment to a second term. And James Webb was pulled this year from the alternate pool to fill a vacancy left by Yvonne White, whose term would have been up June 30th of this year. So he's completing that term of office, which was hers, and he participated in his first COA meeting in February and is eligible for reappointment at this time. As for the current composition of the remaining COA members, that is listed on pages 1 and 2 of your agenda item. So if you need to go back to that, you can. And that's available for you to kind of consider. The current page 3 and 4 also discusses the various aspects of balance that are required in the Ed Code. And so we always make sure that we cover each and every one of those Ed Code sections, and happy to report that the remaining members, regardless of who you choose today, the remaining members all meet these Ed Code sections. So we're good, no matter how you go. And then just a few things to highlight. Currently, the COA has representation from all systems of higher education. The position being vacated is currently being held by a representative of an independent institution, and of the remaining members, 2 are from independent institutions, 2 from CSU and 1 UC. So the good representation is good there. And then gender balance of the 9 remaining COA members, 3 are male and 6 are female. And of geographic representation of the 9 remaining members, 7 are from Southern California and 2 are from Northern California, which is not unusual. We have a lot of institutions down south, so that makes some sense. Let's see. I've provided you with 3 questions to ask that we've thought about it here in the office, and I will caution you that in an effort to be fair to all candidates, if you ask a follow-up question from one, you should probably ask that same follow-up question of the others, unless it's to clarify something that they said, which is, of course, you can do at any time. These 3 questions have been emailed to all the applicants just this morning, so they have a few minutes to gather their thoughts or some time to organize their thinking. And all the interviews will be conducted via Zoom. Michelle is here to assist me, and we will need a few minutes between each interviewee to get them hooked up to the technology and to let the interviewee know that we're ready for them. So you can go ahead and text Kathy, our first interview. At the end of all the interviews, then, you can deliberate and then vote to recommend to the full commission those 3 individuals for appointment, and if you so choose, anyone to the alternate pool as well. So we will. Do you have any questions before we start?
Thank you for that explanation of the process, Ms. Hickey. I thought somebody was drilling something outside.
Some online.
Okay.
Hello.
Kathy, can you hear us?
Yes, this is Kathy. How are you?
Wonderful.
Hello.
So do we have you on the phone with no video, or do you want video?
I am on the phone, no video, because I'm up on the 21st floor, so I dialed in using my office phone because my cell may or may not drop.
Okay, no problem. Great. I'm going to turn this over to our commissioners.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Dr. Krisha, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Croatia.
Croatia. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Aida Rodriguez. I'm a commissioner, and I'll be chairing this ad hoc committee for the interviews today. And I also have with me Commissioner Kevin Kuhn and Commissioner Marisol Escobedo de la Torre. And we begin our interviews with the two finalists, you being the first, for Higher Education Representative on COA. As I said, we have two individuals for one vacancy. Then we'll follow our 4 interviews for the 2 K through 12 positions. Keep in mind that we can also appoint an alternate pool so that the executive director can pull from the alternate pool to fill any unexpected vacancies. We have 3 questions that I believe were emailed to you earlier today. And each commissioner will ask you one of these questions. Are you ready to begin?
Yes, thank you. And please call me Kathy.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay. Hi, Kathy. This is Kevin. I'm going to start with the first question. The first one being, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experience, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Okay, I feel that my professional experiences can give me a very a perspective on the entire range of teacher preparation. My current experience as Director of Accreditation here at USC is obviously giving me a very inside, up close and personal view of the process of accreditation for institutions. You know, the challenges in coordinating across the various programs and stakeholders, data management, the collection, storage, and reporting of that data. I have university teaching experience working with the guided practice candidates for the Education Specialist credential here at USC. I also have experience teaching introductory courses for education specialists here at USC as well as Brandman University. And also, those 2 teaching positions give me, a lot of insight into how theory and expectations, meet practice or not, how to help prepare candidates to meet those the outcomes of particular programs, and the opportunities and challenges that institutions face in documenting that endeavor, and empathy and knowledge for the candidates as well as for the process. I've also served on the Education Specialist Task Force in helping to revamp the Education Specialist credential requirements for the state of California. Also, I am the current credential analyst, so I'm intimately acquainted with teacher candidate requirements and the credentialing process, coordination between the legal requirements and the program outcomes. Also, having worked as an education specialist teacher in the urban context, I have taught diverse K-12 students, emotional disturbance, autism, EL gifted. I've taught kindergarten through high school, as well as at a continuation school setting. I have been through accreditation processes as a teacher, and participated in preparing some of the reports in collaboration with my teacher and administrative colleagues. I understand the process and, from that end of it and how each, position contributes to the mission of the school sites. I know you asked about the professional experiences, but I also want to make sure that I mention that as a parent of K-12 students and as a board member for an urban public charter that just culminated a successful WASC, I understand the value and transparency of educational organizations and accountability, as well as what the data can tell me about how my child's school is doing compared with others, and quite frankly, where the rubber hits the road and how all of this impacts my child's day-to-day educational experience. I feel that as parents, we're our profession's biggest untapped potential. If we can frame accreditation, defining outcomes and methods in such a way that all parents, regardless of educational and professional backgrounds, can understand and get behind, I think we can greatly increase our political clout.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kathy. This is Marisol. Question number 2. Hi. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what specific things would you look for to help you make an accreditation decision for an institution?
Okay, not necessarily in this order, but looking at how an institution defines and interprets the prescribed outcomes, the common language across the stakeholders of the organization regarding outcomes and the measures, the data as related to those measures and outcomes, and how all of that relates to the learning organization's stated mission and the culture.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's Ida again, Kathy. And this is the third and last question. Hi. The current accreditation system is more streamlined and focused on outcomes. Please discuss some of the challenges and opportunities of implementing an outcomes-based accreditation system for educator preparation.
Okay, this is a big one, but overall, I'd like to say, as a profession, we're stronger if we can come to consensus on outcomes and focus the narrative of program improvement as opposed to a penalty-based type of accountability. The stress of this process tends to scare people. The stakes are high, but I think as long as we stick to, putting students first, we'll be a better profession. As long as we can communicate that to everyone, I think we'll be better as a practice. Advantages of this is that it recognizes not all institutions are created equal and that there is space for school organizations, higher ed or K-12, to capitalize on their context and their social capital when, showing evidence of where we are in achieving the outcomes. Also, we prepare a variety of professionals for a variety of roles in schools, counselors, teachers, administrators. The outcomes can be organized, in such a way that we understand how all of these professionals work together and how each of their outcomes affect each other in the mission to provide high quality education. Another advantage, it necessitates backwards planning of curriculum in order to meet learning goals, enables a clearer understanding of how stakeholders contribute to the outcomes prescribed. It promotes professionalism and that all institutions can compare their outcomes in order to determine best practices for program improvement. When done correctly, the data that's collected goes a long way towards providing data for research to substantiate and prove best practices. Some of the challenges, I think, are the interpretation of what the outcome definition is. For example, outcomes is equal higher test scores. Well, do we mean higher as compared to a national average or higher as compared to previous individuals' performance? What's an effective educator? Another challenge, outcomes-based being interpreted as synonymous with accountability penalties, which have been critically interpreted as being rigid. If a student hasn't met a prescribed test score, it's counted as a failure, but has that student increased the score by 30%? Another example, with CSUs not accepting Ds for entrance, for example, some school districts are responding by giving students Fs for anything below 70%. Thinking about how that affects a student's feelings of self-efficacy. Another disadvantage, in the opinion on the outcomes necessary to be considered as achievement. Debate over standardized test scores being accurate measures of intelligence and or academic aptitude. But again, the challenges and the advantages, I think that the advantage outweighs some of those challenges. I think if we can meet those challenges, and I think we have the professional capacity to do so, if we can come together, I think we will be a much better practice for it.
Okay, yes, that was complex, and you did an excellent job.
I was trying not to go over the 15 minutes.
I'm going to have Ms. Hickey ask you a question.
I was just going to say that what I didn't mean to leave off this was just an ending question. Is there anything you would like the committee to know before we say goodbye about your qualifications for this position? Sorry about that. They will ask that of all the candidates, and I meant to do the wrap-up question.
That's okay. What I would like for the committee to know is that I have a very, very broad range of experience. I have seen this from all levels, and I think that that's a definite advantage. I think that that's important in being able to bridge the gaps between the stakeholders, understanding the different perspectives and the different languages that different stakeholders bring. And I do have a very firm commitment to increasing educational outcomes for all students. And I just think that the instructional leadership and the research that we can do through and by accreditation is really going to help give us the power to change some of the policies and really engage on a political landscape where we can really promote teaching as a much stronger profession and making sure that all students are getting that high quality educational experience.
Excellent. Thank you. And do you have any questions for us?
Just, I guess, the timing on when we'd find out if we were in, I guess the meetings happen once a month or every
other month is usually when the Committee on Accreditation meets. And what'll happen is we'll deliberate today and we'll make a decision. A decision actually to bring before the Commission. We'll make our recommendations at the Commission meeting on Friday morning, and then the Commission will vote, and you or the other candidate will be notified pretty much after the meeting, and you can also watch it live on Friday, and so you'll know about the selection process right then. And then
awesome.
Cheryl or somebody from the COA will be contacting you with further information.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Kathy. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hi, Kevin. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi.
and we can see you. Great.
Excellent.
How are you?
I was just trying to text you and tell you that I had joined the meeting, but if my son was here, he'd be bemoaning how bad I am at texting because I'm rather slow. So I won't bother now. I'll just delete that.
Happens to all of us.
But you had the texting posture down pat. That was perfect. How are you? Welcome.
Good, thanks.
Good. So we are the ad hoc committee for this interview process. I'm Commissioner Aida Rodriguez, and to the right of me is Commissioner Kevin Kung and Commissioner Marisol de la Torre Escobedo. So what will happen is we'll interview you. I believe you received 3 questions and earlier today.
Yes.
And we'll be asking you those 3 questions. And we do have a follow-up question, which is nothing intimidating like the first 3. And so the process will be each one of us will ask you a question, and then we will deliberate after the interviews today. We will make a recommendation to the CTC, and there will be based on the recommendation, they'll make a decision on Friday morning. Okay, so do you have any questions about the process?
No, I understood everything you told me. It was a thorough explanation of the process. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will begin with our first question.
Okay, I'm going to start with the first question. And the question is, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Yes, excellent. My undergraduate education and initial teacher training were in the United Kingdom, where I taught high school and middle school physical education before coming to complete my PhD in teacher education at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, South Carolina. In South Carolina, I was trained in and worked to administer the assessment of performance in teaching instrument that they used in South Carolina at the time. And that gave me my first experience into assessment as part of the accreditation process. I built on that in my first position as a teacher educator at the University of Northern Colorado. At UNC, I worked in teacher education for 6 years, was heavily involved in accreditation work. The place exams were just starting. The program for licensing assessment of Colorado educators were just coming out, and I worked to align our program with NASB and preparation for then having our students prepared for the place exams. And the NASB at the time, the National Association for Sport and Physical Education, was aligned with NCATE, and so I took on the NCATE accreditation responsibilities there. So worked in accreditation of teacher education programs and preparing our students and aligning our curriculum with the standards and examinations for teachers. So accreditation on lots of levels. After 6 years at Northern Colorado, I moved to California. I've been at Cal Poly ever since for the first 15 years of my time here at Cal Poly. I was in the kinesiology department. I came here and initially trained teachers. Sadly, a teacher education, physical education program closed down through lack of enrollment in around 2008, 2009. And I became department chair in kinesiology. Prior to that, worked in collaboration with the School for the Study of Teaching and Teacher Education, as it was then, and worked in support of their accreditation efforts with CTC. Then, after a period as department chair, 4 years as department chair in kinesiology, became director of the School of Education. So now my experience with accreditation is overseeing accreditation for the School of Education. So I'm directly involved in that now, I'm heavily involved in that. As far as my work with diversity and students from diverse backgrounds. In kinesiology, I taught the adapted physical education class to all kinesiology majors for 14 years and developed a passion for social justice and inclusion, which extended to my teacher education work in terms of including diverse cultures. We had a clinical practice class in the high school that I insisted we moved to Santa Maria and had to advocate strongly that we teach that class in Santa Maria because our other clinical practice programs were in San Luis Obispo. We have a very white privileged community, a very wealthy community, and our students had no exposure to the diversity of cultures that exist more broadly in the state of California. And by taking this class to Santa Maria and championing the cause of embedding this course into Santa Maria High School, we exposed our students to a school setting that was 99% Hispanic. And it was a fantastic class for our students because it really rounded out their curriculum and exposure to the schools and gave them something that they had missed. I fought for that. I maintained that connection until I stopped teaching the class. It enriched my experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know it enriched the experience of our students, and was very passionate about that. On campus now, I'm an advocate for inclusion and diversity. We embrace it in every aspect of what we do in the School of Education, and I'm championing an effort on campus at the moment around combating some of the hate speech, which unfortunately has been popping up in the last few years here on campus. I'm practically involved in activities to counter that and to further inclusion. Reform efforts. I'm currently engaged in a reform effort within the School of Education at Cal Poly. There are various examples along the way, but I'm trying to be brief. We are designing and building an educational technology lab and reforming our approach to integrating technology into our instruction and preparing teacher candidates to be informed users of technology in the classroom. I want to, I'm putting $60,000 into this, and I've raised around campus another $90,000 to make this happen. Construction is going to occur over the summer, and we are reaching out to our county office of education, our local district offices of education, to really utilize this facility as widely as possible to reform our practice around better integration of technology into the training of our pre-service teachers, our teacher candidates, but also to enrich and deepen our partnerships with local districts and to provide a facility that we can use for in-service teacher education, working with local teachers. That's about it. As I said, I'm trying to be brief. I'm getting a little long in the tooth and I have a lot to talk about, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, here's question number 2. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what specific things would you look for to help you make an accreditation decision for an institution?
Accreditation should be evidence-based. So primarily, I'm going to look for evidence. That's my short answer. To be a little bit more specific, I would be constantly looking for evidence of a systematic commitment to continuous improvement. Nobody's perfect. None of us are perfect. And if we're committed to continuous improvement, as long as we are meeting some minimum standards, we've established ourselves and we're going in the right direction. And with appropriate support, we'll be on that journey of strong professional practice. So I would look for evidence of a commitment to continuous improvement. I would look for evidence of a culture of caring, and to ensure that people are not are not engaging in activities because they need to get accreditation. We need to engage in practice because there's solid evidence that practice works. We need to engage in appropriate cutting-edge professional practice because we care about our students and we care about the profession. And so underpinning anyone's accreditation efforts, I would like to see a commitment to caring about the profession writ large, because I think it's strong evidence of the commitment to not just trying to get accreditation, but trying to turn out quality educators and build a quality program of teacher preparation. So broadly, I would be looking for evidence. I would be looking for evidence that programs have met the letter of the standards, the criteria, the letter of the law, but the spirit of it as well, with this culture of caring and commitment to the profession.
Thank you. And now the third question, transition to new system. The current accreditation system is more streamlined and focused on outcomes. Please discuss some of the challenges and opportunities of implementing an outcomes-based accreditation system for educator preparation.
And outcomes-based approach is wonderful from the perspective that you could look for evidence of actual performance. It's not what you're not looking at what somebody aspires to do. You're looking at actual practice. You're looking at the outcomes. Can they actually do what they claim to be doing or what they aspire to do? And that's a wonderful opportunity in outcomes-based accreditation. We're looking for actual evidence of substantive, meaningful progress towards the end of preparing quality educators. Opportunities abound in different programs demonstrating outcomes in slightly different ways, so that we can embrace the nuanced differences across different institutions, different cultures, subcultures, areas, geographic areas of our state, so that we can model for our students culturally relevant instruction, engaged instruction, where communities are engaged in the teacher preparation. And an outcomes-based approach allows for people to approach demonstrating how they meet outcomes in slightly different ways. Challenges involved in that, the different approaches, whilst wonderful in allowing people freedom, it can make for a challenge in terms of reliability in assessing the degree to which someone has met the accreditation standards, because if they're all meeting them in slightly different ways, then being reliable in our decision making across the different programs can be a challenge. It's definitely a challenge worth meeting, because it allows that that ability for different programs to demonstrate their prowess in different ways. Outcomes-based approaches can be challenging also from the perspective of collecting data, capturing evidence in authentic ways. So you're going to have to collect a lot of evidence, collect a lot of data, and that mass of information in different forms then takes a long time to review. So one of the big challenges of an outcomes-based accreditation system then is, how do you structure and organize everything in a way that it can be reviewed quickly and efficiently to ensure that reliability that I talked about that is so important. It can take expertise, unique expertise, just to assemble all of the evidence and assemble it in such a way that it tells an accurate picture of an accurate story of what the institution is doing in terms of addressing the outcomes for accreditation.
Excellent. Thank you. And the last question is,
excuse me, sorry, but the audio cut out and I didn't hear that.
I think there was a motorcycle that went by.
Okay, I got you now.
Is there anything else that you'd like us to know before this interview ends today?
No, other than I have a commitment to service and collaboration. My career has been about serving others, has been about collaboration, and a sense of connectedness to the community. I always talk to my teachers about connecting their instruction to the community in which they're delivering that instruction. Now, in my position, I'm privileged to lead a group of fantastic professionals and feel a responsibility to showcase what we're doing, to engage in supporting the profession at large within the state of California. I see this as an opportunity to give back to that broader community and connect what we're doing at Cal Poly and teacher education to teacher education across the state, as a representative of my institution and of IHEs, because I understand I'll be an IHE representative if I'm successful.
Excellent. Thank you. And do you have any questions of us before we sign off?
Roughly, what's the time commitment of someone in this position as a member of the Commission on Accreditation?
4 years? Is it 4 years? It's a 4-year appointment. And the time commitment is the Committee on Accreditation usually meets every other month, sometimes for 1 day, one complete day. Other times it's 2 days, depending on like when the accreditation visits, the site visits have taken place. And so the meetings are here. And is there anything else, Cheryl?
No, I don't think so. The heavy lifting is done in the spring when the site visits are occurring. But yeah, that's about, I think you summed it up pretty well.
And the meetings are in Sacramento?
Yes, correct. Here at the CTC.
Okay. Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Good luck with the process. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fast things would go. This information is on page, I think page 29 is where it might start. 27, 20. Oh, I'm on the wrong item. Aha, there's James.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear us, James?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. All right.
Hello, James.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So what will be happening, we have 3 commissioners here. Myself, Aida Rodriguez, we met at the last COA meeting.
Yes,
And the Commissioner Kevin Kung and
Hello.
Commissioner Marisol de la Torre. And the process is we'll be interviewing 4 candidates. There are 2 open slots in your category. And we will deliberate after we're done with the interviews. and will make a recommendation to the commission on Friday morning. Okay, and then you will be notified as soon as that decision is made.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much.
So you bet. So we'll go ahead and get started. Commissioner Kung has the first question.
Okay. Hi, James. The first question is, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Commission on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in the accreditation process.
Sure. Well, I am in a career that I have loved for over 20 years now. I've taught both junior high and high school English, both in Florida, Minnesota, and now here in California. Before I came out of the classroom to be a full-time mentor and then the induction director, I taught English language development. And when I was in this position, I also served as our school's EL representative at both district and county meetings here in LA County. What's interesting for me is that I participated in BITSA when I first came into California. Then I was a mentor, and now I'm the induction director for both our teacher and administrative services induction program. So I've been through the entire process from what I call a BITSA baby up until now as the director. In 2015, I served as a member of the task force to strengthen and streamline the accreditation process. I was appointed to that position through the application that I submitted, and I assisted with the revision of the common standards and redesigning the accreditation process in California. Since 2016, and currently I am serving as a member of the APA, the Administrative Performance Assessment Task Group, to both design and implement that particular assessment for the preliminary administrative services credentials. I participated on a number of site review teams as a common standards cluster reviewer, and I've also served as a team lead on site visits as well. In addition to my role as an induction director, one of the other things that I do is I do facilitate new director academies for the induction directors in our area. And also I've done things around the state as well, helping new directors. And I am currently a member for the K-12 community on the Committee on Accreditation. I was appointed into that position due to a vacancy, and I started that in November of 2017.
Thank you.
All right, here's question number 2. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what specific things would you look for to help you make an accreditation decision for an institution?
When I read the reports for the COA meeting, the first thing that I do is I review both the common standards and the program standards that are being evaluated by the site visit ahead of reading the report. And I do that because I think it's important to review the standards so that when you read the report, you have an understanding of what the standard requires and how it could look with implementation when at the site. Another important element that I think is very important, especially now where we are in accreditation, is to really understand that programs at this time are going through a transition as they transition to the new common and program standards, as well as understanding the new streamlined accreditation process. You don't want to ignore important elements of the requirements, but I think it's important that we have to maintain that positive intentionality that programs are working towards when they're implementing these newly adopted standards. So as you're reading reports and as you're looking at what the team is finding, you understand that there's a standard, but then also you want to take into account the transition that's going on as programs are making their way to a new system. And when I do feel that I need clarification for further information, I think it's important that we ask questions of the team lead and the program directors that are in attendance at the meetings, because it gives a rounding out of the report. As both a writer of the report, also someone who has read the reports, and also someone who's been through an accreditation process, which, by the way, was my first year as a director, so that was rather interesting, is that we have to see that the report itself is a two-dimensional review of the program, but sometimes when we have the information from the team lead, the state consultant, and the program director, it helps us to make a accreditations decision once we're able to see the more three-dimensional approach and how they triangulated data in order to be able to arrive at findings on the standards. And finally, I think the most important thing when we're reading reports and when we're trying to be led to decisions is that we have to collaborate with our other members of the COA at the meetings, and also look to the administrators for accreditation as we are working towards that process. Sometimes we may ask questions, may bring up an idea in which someone may have another fresh approach, and I feel that it needs to be shared. And then I think also the administrators who for accreditation that are in the meeting can also provide a calibration of the standards as the COA members are making decisions and arriving at different types of accreditation designations that need to be made as a result of the site visit.
Great, thank you. And question 3, transitioning to a new system, which you just mentioned about some of the issues that are happening there. The current accreditation system is more streamlined and focused on outcomes. Please discuss some of the challenges and opportunities of implementing an outcome-based accreditation system for educator preparation.
Well, one thing I want to say is that I found that this whole process was very exciting, especially in the world of induction, because we really are looking at an outcomes-based model when it comes to helping teachers clear their preliminary credentials. So I'm going to start with the challenges first to answer that part of the question, and then I'm going to go into the opportunities, because I feel that some of the challenges do help with the opportunities. So I think one of the big challenges really is, how do you ensure that the outcomes that we expect do match the standards? Meaning that, are the outcomes determined by the program? Are they determined by the candidate? Are they determined by a reviewer of the information? But really, how do you tie outcomes to standards to make sure that we are indeed uniform across the state of California, so that programs do adhere to the standards in order to make sure that educator preparation is streamlined and also strengthened to make sure that we're serving the needs of the children in the state. So to do that, how do we determine that? What is the instrument? And I think that that's been a real big talking point among different programs, to really look at what do those instruments look like. So I think that what we need to do is, in order to look at those challenges, I think it's important to meet the needs of the candidates and the schools that are being served. So within the new system, I think this context job embedded approach really assists with maintaining those high standards, because what's happening is, as the programs work to meet and to make these determinations towards candidate competency, the standards in the children whom we are serving help with that process as well, so that really what we're doing is we're meeting the needs of our audience, whomever that might be. So to start to look at opportunities, I think that as we focus on outcomes rather than component parts, it ensures that the contextual program can really assist candidates in meeting rigorous content standards while still providing an equitable learning environment for students. I think one of the things that helps, and I think that's been very positive, is that it encourages programs to really have more benchmarks and evaluations along the way to ensure that standards are being met, whether they are the California standards for the teaching profession or preliminary expectations. And I think when we look at that, we're modeling the type of teaching that we would want to see in our state's classrooms by looking at formative assessment to then inform a summative assessment. Because I feel that systems that focus on unrelated tasks, the final product is often missed. And I think that final product really is an environment in which learning is both supported and nurtured. And so when we do that, when we look at the outcomes-based model that we're moving towards, we look at both the science and the art of teaching to really serve the students in the state of California with whom we are charged by the commission to ensure that they have an educational experience that's of high quality.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and our final question, is there anything else you'd like the committee to know?
All I would say is that I feel very fortunate and very humbled to have worked with the commission in the different capacities that I have been. I have really enjoyed my work with the COA, also with the systems analysis as a team lead, as a site reviewer, because I found that there's that reciprocal accountability that I think is really important with our programs. And I have been able to be a part of a system and networking that really has helped me as a director with my program, and also with working with other universities or other people around the state. So I just really feel very honored. And whatever the decision is by the commission, I know that I will still continue with work with the committee or with the commission in whatever form that might be, whether it's as a site reviewer, a team lead, or hopefully another appointment to the COA. But I'm really just very honored to have been selected, and then also to be able to learn from this experience, which I feel like I'm always on professional development when I come up there and learn from the different meetings that I attend. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for us before we say goodbye?
No, I think I'm okay, Cheryl. Thanks so much for all your help in facilitating this. So I appreciate that.
Great, of course. Thank you for your time. So
All right,
have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm okay. I'll stand there for a second. I've read it. Oh, she's literally in her car.
Great. Can you hear us?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Oh, there's a little lag from your mouth moving to when your voice shows up. I don't know if that's fixable or not, but we can hear you fine. All right. I'm going to turn this over to our commissioners. And did you get the questions this morning?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay.
Hello, Catherine. How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, Katrine, I'm sorry. How are you? Good. Okay.
And actually, it's a Danish name, so Katrina. As long as I'm not like Katrina Latrina, then it works fine.
Got it. Okay. So Commissioner Kung, myself, Commissioner Aida Rodriguez, and Commissioner De La Torre are conducting this interview. I believe you received 3 of the questions that you'll be asked today via email. Is that correct? And
that's right.
So the process is we'll ask a question at a time, and then we have a follow-up question to end. So it's a total of 4. What we'll do is we'll deliberate after we're done with all of the interviews, and we'll make a recommendation to the CTC, who will vote on Friday morning. And at that point, you'll be contacted regarding your status with regard to the interview. Okay? And if you have any questions for us, you're more than welcome to ask them now, or you can ask them after the interview. Do you have any questions before we get started?
No, I don't think so. I hope I can be succinct and honor your time.
Okay, excellent. So we'll go ahead and start with question number 1.
Okay. Hi, Katrina. So the first question is, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Commission on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Well, I have been an educator since 1990. I began my first teaching position at Southwest Middle School, which is located about 3 miles north of the U.S.-Mexico international border. And I think I learned more in my long-term substitute assignment there than I probably did in my undergraduate education. I grew up in Oregon, and then I found myself in Southern California. And so I'll begin the answer to this question by just saying that I have come to truly appreciate the challenges facing diverse kids in our state by working with them for the last almost 30 years as primarily a teacher. And I've recently become an administrator, but as a teacher, I earned credentials in math, English, and social studies. I took what was then the Praxis test to earn that authorization. And as a result of that, I found myself teaching different things every year with different students, which gave me a very kind of broad exposure to all types of kids at all different levels. And I experienced all the different ways those courses can be taught to students within local contexts. So most of my career, I would say 15 years, the place where I taught the longest was at Mar Vista High School, which is, of course, on the border as well. And it's located in the most southwesterly city in the continental U.S. And I live on a street that's 2 blocks from the school. And so I just say that because my primary education at Mar Vista was understanding the lives of my students outside of my classroom. And I coached 4 different sports, and I had parent conferences in garages, and I had every kid who lived on my street in my class. And so I got to know that only 2 of them lived with their biological parents. And then I learned about everything that was involved in helping them to succeed. So it was a very humbling experience for me. I have credentials. I earned authorization through CTC and in GATE education, BCLAD. I earned my administrative credential 5 years into my career, but I never used it until recently. And I just went through induction, the new induction requirements for administrators. And so in addition to classroom teaching, I worked in a variety of leadership capacities at the school site, everything from professional learning community chair to a resource teacher for mathematics and language arts, projects-based learning, interdisciplinary curriculum, all kinds of stuff like that. I worked as a categorical funds coordinator, or what's now called a coordinated intervention specialist or integrated services resource teacher. And that's where I really started to understand the importance of legal mandates and board policies, administrative regulations, ed code. I realized how those had an impact on classroom teaching. I also worked as a curriculum specialist for high school math in the state's largest secondary district, which is Sweetwater, 7 through 12. And in that process, I was honored to participate in efforts to detrack mathematics, particularly at the middle school level. We adopted an integrated mathematics curriculum, college preparatory math, and so I was aware of how that was how that process unfolded. And beyond my classroom, I was able to participate in a number of statewide initiatives, primary among which was coordinating an expository literacy grant through the California Academic Partnership Program. And that's an intersegmental body that has representatives from UC, CSU, a variety of other organizations throughout the state, K-12, administrators and teachers. And that really was a precursor to a lot of the shifts predicated by the Common Core standards in English language arts. So moving toward exposition, I helped to lead my district and to work with leaders in 13 other districts throughout the state to make those changes in advance of the Common Core standards, with the goal of reducing remediation at the university level. So I guess I've also worked with the staff at UCSD. I've worked with people at San Diego State in the preliminary credential program, because my most recent position is as the director of, or the program manager for teacher induction in Sweetwater. And that's really why I think I've applied to the COA now, is I've gained a firsthand appreciation for the power of the new standards. I mean, I believe in them. Our program came back from being inactive. I had to rebuild it from the ground up. And my blueprint were your new standards. They were the 2015, induction standards that I used to guide how my program was set up. That process has, made me keenly aware of the need to collaborate with my colleagues in pre-service programs to build a pre-service through induction pipeline so that we can retain teachers in our state. And the expectations of those standards are really powerful, particularly number 5. And I think we can talk about that one in a next question.
All right, thank you.
I hope that answered the first one.
Yes. Question number 2. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what specific things would you look for to help you make an accreditation decision for an institution?
Well, I thought this was the best of the 3 questions, actually. I thought this was a good question. I think it's challenging. And ultimately, I think this is a committee. This is a committee on accreditation. So clearly, the decision that the COA and CTC would make on behalf of an organization would have to be a collaboratively developed, reasoned outcome based on a variety of justifying factors. So, I mean, some of the things that I think I would want to consider would obviously begin with policy and published expectations, the details of the standards against which an organization or a program is being evaluated or held accountable. I would want to carefully consider the intent of program leaders and representatives of the organization. Are they keenly aware of the fact that these standards are about advancing the best interests of students? Ultimately really trying to distill down or derive, I'm not sure what the right mathematical metaphor would be, but to think beyond the letter of the law to its implications for kids, because we do have local control and accountability that I think is a really sensible way to ensure equity across our state. So I'd want to really know more about the local context in which the standards are being implemented. What are the mitigating factors that are potentially limiting or confusing the situation? And similarly, in what ways is a program really making sense of the letter of the standards and serving as a model for others throughout the state? I think that's something I'd want to always be keeping in mind, is what can we teach one another about how to do this right for the best interest of kids? Ultimately, I need to understand the chain of command within each local educational authority or district that's being authorized by the Committee on Accreditation. How are decisions made? At what level? What types of decisions are vested in people at various levels? I think I'd always want to secure or solicit alternate interpretations of data that might not be self-evident, because it's not always obvious what a set of numbers can represent, or what what an artifact says about a program. I mean, ultimately, I think I'd want to always be made aware of how responsive I'm being to feedback from people who are leading these programs. To what degree are questions based on the needs of people leading programs? I'd want to somehow assess or determine the capacity and potential of individuals in programs that are being accredited, in order to connect resources on behalf of those programs. And then ultimately, I think I'd need to really be aware of the historical precedent of a program and the way people running a program may have interpreted expectations in the past, and how those might contrast with the new directions that people are getting from the Committee on Accreditation. I want to think about all that stuff.
Great. Okay. Katrina, now the third question. The current accreditation system is more streamlined and focused on outcomes. Please discuss some of the challenges and opportunities of implementing an outcomes-based accreditation system for educator preparation.
Well, as I've already said, I think this question really highlights my interest in contributing to the Committee on Accreditation, particularly because I've had to take 25 years of working in education, and now I have this opportunity to build a teacher induction program for 350 participants in our first year. And I began with those new standards at the very heart of our program design. We created internal formative assessments with those outcomes in mind. And I guess I would highlight from PSD 1508 Standard 5, which talks about determining candidate competence for clear credential recommendations. To me, and again, I've served as a BITSA support provider. I served as a mentor teacher before that. But this shift right here, this new Standard 5, really suggests that programs like ours are not about compliance, that they must be about coaching teachers to achieve a level of proficiency in terms of the California standards for the teaching profession. Not just anything goes, yet growth is the word that appears the most in these standards. So I love the focus on outcomes. I think it took me too long as a teacher, as I think it does many educators, to realize that what matters most about teaching isn't what you do to kids or the activities that they're engaged in, but your success in helping every student achieve success by external and internal standards. So, as measured by clear outcomes. I think there's a number of tools when you talk about possibilities or potential of this shift that can be very powerful. In my district right now, we are using this continuum on teaching practice extensively, aligned with the candidate's individual learning plan, CSTP emphasis. So our candidates all identify a CSTP element that most closely aligns with their goal for their individual learning plan. And then we provide them feedback according to this continuum on teaching practice, particularly on elements 1.5 and 5.5 that kind of get at the idea of rigor, and then student self-assessment. So that's an example of one way a focus on outcomes that can be clearly described using common language, using this tool, can really bring together the participants and leaders and members of a team like induction to really enhance each individual teacher's capacity to grow. I think there's a number of challenges with this, primary among which is it's a major change. It's a fairly major change to how at least induction was implemented in the past. but it's high time. It's time we do this, and we're ready to do this. There are very, very committed, competent, capable people leading this charge. I mean, I was invited to serve on this administrator performance assessment design team, and I was amazed by the earnest, sincere, ethical commitment that I witnessed there. And I took that from, I came back from those meetings to my small world of Sweetwater and just said, have faith, people. These people in Sacramento are leading this really important work that needs to serve as an example for the state, for the nation. It's like, we can do this, and it really made me have renewed confidence after 25 years in this gig that we are on the cusp of really bolstering the future of the teaching profession in the state. So I don't know. I think there's challenges, but again, I think if we can create models and identify pockets of promising practices, then everybody can do this.
Thank you. And just one last question. Is there anything else you'd like to share about yourself with the committee regarding this position?
I'm just happy to be here. I'm honored to have a chance to talk with you. I kind of already said it, but I really commend your work, regardless of who you select to join your group. The democratic process is alive and well in California. You're a shepherding opportunity for exactly the kinds of students that I'd like to think I've been humbled by for a quarter century. I represent a region that I think really illustrates or magnifies challenges statewide. And I think that that's something that you should keep in mind, that, I'm a white educator who grew up in Oregon, and I live on the border of the US-Mexico border here. I've, spent my entire career on the west side of a bifurcated district where the east side is very affluent often, and then the west side is almost universally school-wide Title I schools. So I've spent a lot of time I think that that's a commitment that I'll bring for better or worse. And
Katrina, can we stop you for 1 second? Because you froze for a second. So I think it ended with you talking about a commitment that you bring.
And the west side, east side,
exactly.
You were right there.
We didn't want to lose any of your thoughts. Sorry.
Well, that's basically it. I think, my little world down here is really informed by a lot of challenges that affect school districts statewide. And I think that's probably all I need to say to you. I think I've overstayed my welcome, and I appreciate the time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Were you texting, Michelle?
We'll start either.
Do you guys know people that just like read their email at a certain time of the day? Yeah. And like whenever you get a response from them, it's at
the same time.
Right. Because I'm like, if I get it on my phone, I usually respond as quickly as possible. Right. Do you check your emails all day?
Hello.
Kelly, is that you?
Hello.
Hi, Kelly.
Yes,
Can you hear
Kelly.
me?
I can.
Great. And we have just audio of you, no video, right?
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I'm off site and the internet's like not working great. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to use my phone here.
Okay, not a problem. We can still do that. So I'm going to turn this over to the commissioners. Thanks for joining us a little bit early. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello?
Thank you.
Hi, Kelly.
Hello.
It's Aide Rodriguez. I'm a familiar voice. Hi, how you doing?
Yes. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm sitting here with two other commissioners, Commissioner Kevin Kung and Commissioner Marisol de la Torre Escobedo. And we have 3 questions for you, actually 4, but 3 that I think were emailed to you. And
yes.
The 4th one is not a huge challenge. So don't panic. Like, oh my God, I only got 3. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get started with the interview process. And if you have any questions of us, I'll just tell you very quickly that we will deliberate after we're done today, and we'll make a recommendation to the CTC on Friday morning, and then the CTC will vote on the recommendation. Then you'll be contacted as soon as we know the outcome. Okay, perfect.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Kelly. So I have the first question. Hi. And the first question is, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Commission on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students for credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Yes. So I started my career 11 years ago and spent 8 years as a classroom teacher, where I was a math and then STEAM or STEM elective teacher. And in that role, I was in 2 separate districts, one that was very diverse, my first 4 years teaching there, and then one not necessarily ethnically diverse, but diverse in terms of just the different needs that the district presented. And then from there, I moved into administration. And so I've spent 3 years as a district administrator, coordinating secondary math and science curriculum and instruction. And in that role, I actually train teachers and run all of the professional development. And part of that also includes working with the new teachers that get hired for the math and science courses, and also with implementing our multi-tiered system of support on that first best instruction. So looking at what are those best pedagogical strategies that we want teachers to use, and kind of pulling from, recent and relevant research for instruction. So that's my primary role that I do right now. I also, as an administrator, you get the other duties as assigned. And one of my other duties is to work with high school guidance counselors. And so in that role, I oversee their PD and just facilitate their jobs in terms of working with students and helping them to ensure that all students are graduating from high school and meeting A to G, and working with them too in terms of the multi-tiered system of support and what role do they play alongside the teachers. And then I also have volunteered to be on the advisory board for our induction program in my current district. And so that entails, participating in the meetings that they have, going and visiting classrooms, working with the new teachers as well as the support providers, providing them resources. And then at the end of the year, sitting in on the colloquium that we do, where the finishing teachers present what they've done the past 2 years. And that's always a very fun day because they're, proud of the work that they've been doing. And I get to shake their hand and say congratulations. And so that's one of the highlights of being on that advisory board. And then I also part-time adjunct at Concordia University. And through that, I volunteered to be on their credential advisory board, which is very similar, attending their meetings. And then because I'm close with some of the people in the program, when they have questions about K-12 issues, they'll, shoot me a text or a phone call or an email and like, hey, what's going on? And, the standards here, or what's going on? Like, we heard this issue. And so that's been a nice opportunity for me to kind of contribute and give back in that way. I would say that would be the overall summary of my background and experience.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2, as a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what specific things would you look for to help you make an accreditation decision for an institution? Well, I would say, and I didn't mention this in my first answer, but having been a member of the Committee on Accreditation for the past 4 years, when I first started, I was like, whoa, all of these reports and like, what am I reading? And over the past 4 years, I've really kind of honed in on what are those key things that help make those decisions. And I always definitely look at the common standards. Like, that's super essential. If there's, common standards not being met, like, which ones are they and why aren't they being met? And what is the report saying? And then also the program impact standards and the continuous improvement of the common standards. Those are the ones that, like, I really want to know about. Not necessarily even if it's, an institution that's not meeting standards, but even the ones that it's a full accreditation recommendation from the team. I want to know, like, what are they doing in those areas? Because it's best practices, and then kind of stealing ideas, like, and bringing that back to my district of, how do they measure that program impact? So those are kind of the key things over the past 4 years that I like to look at and focus in on when I'm reading the reports. Of course, always, taking the whole report as a whole. And one thing that I really appreciated is with the rest of the committee members, the dialogue that we have and the questions that we ask when the institutions are sitting in front of us as follow-ups to the report. Because sometimes a committee member will see something in a report that I didn't catch, and then they ask a question, and then it makes me ask a follow-up question. So I think I appreciate the committee effort, that it's a joint decision together. And there, for the past 4 years, there have been some tough decisions that we had, but we did it together, and we spent time really looking into that report and looking at that institutional history and, what were the issues and what were the concerns, and really like focusing in on what's best for the California student and honing in on that, the student, what is best for the K-12 student that's getting that teacher, but then also the teacher that's in the program being prepared.
Okay, and question 3, transition to new system. The current accreditation system is more streamlined and focused on outcomes. Please discuss some of the challenges and opportunities of implementing an outcomes-based accreditation system for educator preparation.
Great. So I think one of the opportunities, and I mentioned it earlier, was just the idea of sharing best practices of, what's working, what isn't working, and just that ability with, streamlining the accreditation system and the new, data dashboard, being able to really ensure that California students are being properly served, that the teachers that are being trained and put into the teaching force are doing right by students, and all of our students are getting an equitable education. So I think that sharing of, good programs and best practices is a great outcome of this streamlining. And then I would say one of the challenges is what data to collect, especially in terms of, when we're looking at program impact, that post-credential, like following up on the candidates and the impact that they're making on the classroom. What are we collecting? Is it state test scores? Is it, how long they stay in a district? I would say that's been one of the challenging conversations, is that long-term outcome impact data. What do we collect and how do we measure it? Would be one of the challenges.
Thank you.
I have one last question, and that is there anything else? Oh, sorry. Did we get cut off?
What was that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, is there anything else that you'd like to share about yourself with the committee regarding this position?
I think just the fact that I've been doing it for the past 4 years, and it's been a real honor to be able to serve the field of education in that capacity, and working with the other committee members, and that part I feel like is a genuine contribution to the state, and I take that responsibility very seriously, and very much appreciate the opportunity to give back in that capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Callie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
And I believe Cynthia Amos's information starts on page 9. There you go. Okay. Hi, Cynthia. How are you? All right. We can see your lips moving, but we can't hear your voice. See if you're muted. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Oh, perfect. Now we can
Yes,
hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Wonderful. Great.
Okay.
And we can see you as well. Good. All right.
Hello, Cynthia, and welcome. I'm Commissioner Aida Rodriguez, and this is our ad hoc committee. Commissioner Kevin Kung to the right of me, and Commissioner Marisol de la Torre Escobedo to the left. And we have some questions for you. The process is that we will, you're actually our last interview today, and so we'll start deliberating after we've completed the interviews. And we'll make a recommendation to the commission on Friday morning. And at that point, the commission will vote either for or against our recommendation. And then you'll be notified as soon as, well, not as soon as the process is done. We'll still be in a meeting, but you will be notified. And we have 2 positions in your category and 4 applicants. So, but we're also looking for alternates, just so that you know. And that's a little bit about the process. Do you have any questions for us before we get started?
No, I don't. Thank you very much for the opportunity to interview.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay. Hi. So I have the first question, and the first question is, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation, or interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process?
I've been a classroom teacher in a variety of settings. I started and ended my classroom teaching experience in an urban setting. I have extensive experience with ELs, LTELs, long-term English learners, and SELs. Also, I have experience with students who are now considered having a life experience that requires specific differentiation of instruction to make core, for them to be able to access and understand the core. I've been an assistant principal in an urban school. I'm currently an administrator in a suburban school. I've worked in various settings within the Los Angeles Unified School District, from school-wide Target Title I schools, whole school-wide Title I schools, as well as affluent schools in what would be considered socioeconomically affluent areas. I have experience as a full-time release mentor for LAUSD's teacher induction program. As such, I have supported credential candidates in what are called priority staffing schools. Those are high need schools, which characteristically, again, have a high population of ELs and LTEL students. In addition to SEL students, I've carried a caseload of elementary and secondary teachers or credential candidates, ranging anywhere from 12 credential candidates to 23 credential candidates. So I've supported their accelerating their practice to positively impact student achievement and to meet the requirements to be recommended for their professional clear credential. Currently, I'm on the board of institutional review, and as such, each year I'm a team member on at least 2 accreditation review teams. Next week, I'll be the lead for the Fresno County Office of Education site visit. That Fresno County Office of Education is 33 school districts in Northern California. I'm also a reviewer for the Common Standards Review applications. I'm a scorer for the Cal TPA. And next week, I'll be calibrating, week after next, because next week I'm in Fresno. So week after next, I'll be in calibration training to be a scorer for the Cal APA. In addition, I am a member of the think tank session for the Clear Induction Administrative Services Credential Programs, and I'll be a panelist for a TPE workshop in Sacramento on the week of April 25th.
All right, thank you. Question number 2, as a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what specific things would you look for to help you make an accreditation decision for an institution?
There are approximately 6 things that we look for. The first thing is that we assure that the program standards for the professional preparations program are met in the program to allow the program to recommend the candidates for clear credential. We look to assure that the candidate and the public, we look to make sure that the candidate is prepared in the program and receives a high quality and effective support and preparation so that the candidates meet the requirements for licensure. We look at, or I would look at, the accountability measures that the program has for quality and effectiveness in how it prepares its candidates. And I would look for overall effectiveness and quality of the programs to ensure that the program continues to retain its accreditation. The last thing I would look at is how does the program look at itself and what systems the program is in place to ensure that the program is reflects upon itself, reviews data in terms of program effectiveness and candidate outcomes to address areas of need and continue to continue to have in place the things that they have in place that are shown, that the data show to be effective. So the deltas and the pluses and the areas of need.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move on to the third question. Excuse me. The current accreditation system is more streamlined and focused on outcomes. Please discuss some of the challenges and opportunities of implementing an outcomes-based accreditation system for educator preparation.
Some of the opportunities are, this is a scale up of really what teachers are expected to do, because teachers, in order to be considered effective, according to the CSTPs, are to use data and work in a database system. So this move by COA into an outcomes-based system continues to align the expectations that it has for the teachers, the expectations that it has for the administrators, the administrative prep and the teacher prep programs, and now the entity that oversees the teacher and administrator prep programs. So it's a continuation of the work of current research-based practices and where the practice is going. One of the opportunities is that when it's more subjective, it's more objective because it's data-based. And so now we're not so based on what we see or what we feel, it's what the data says, and interpreting the data in terms of, again, the pluses, what we're doing right and what we need to keep, and then the areas for growth. And the areas of growth are pretty apparent in a data-driven system. One of the drawbacks is getting everyone to understand that the system has changed and what that looks like, what that sounds like, what that feels like, and how to operate within that system. For example, standard one for an induction program, it used to be we would look for a system of induction like FACT or FAST, and now the system is based on the individual learning log, and so it's more personalized, which is in one way a drawback, but then in another way is really needs driven and data based. But it's just getting everyone to understand that change and how that how that change looks within the program, the application of that change. Another opportunity is efficiency and cost effectiveness. This new program, because it is needs based and more flexible, is very efficient. It is individualized to the individual candidates and the individual induction program, which carries over to cost effectiveness. Fact and FAST carried a cost with them. And even though they were very effective systems, since the standard changed, there's more flexibility in terms of how to leverage the dollars to really meet the needs of the individual program, where those dollars may have had to be allocated for a quote unquote system of induction in the past.
Thank you.
And our final question, is there anything else you'd like the committee to know?
I'm a hard worker. I'm dedicated to, I really believe I really believe in the system of accreditation and the work of the COA, and I'm broadening my work and my contributions to the work. I'm very dedicated to the work, and I see the value in the work in terms of student achievement and teacher effectiveness.
And do you have any questions of us before we sign off?
No, the only question I had, you answered in the beginning about the process going forward. So thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much for your time, and you'll be hearing from us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Yes. Are we ready to start deliberating?
Yes.
We are ready.
Okay. So what I suggest, since we have 6 candidates for 2 different positions, that we start with the first, the higher education.
Okay.
And perhaps we can suggest like your number 1 choice, just, go around, and then your choice for alternate, and discuss the reasons for each.
Okay.
Would you like to go ahead and start?
Sure. I guess my first choice of our 2 candidates. First, they were both great candidates, and I think both would serve very well in a position. But we have to make a decision, and I would choose Cretia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. So Dr. Cretia, and the reason why is because she has strong K-12 experience as a teacher. She works at the IHE level now. She has a special ed, or what is it, the education specialist background, and she worked with everything from EL to gifted students. She's a parent. She works the school board. She works on the urban school districts. And I think she'll also bring a great diverse background to the COA.
Okay. Commissioner Villa.
Okay. Should we talk about both candidates, or are we just talking about our first choice?
Okay. Sorry, I just talked about my first choice. I both are great. I'm just telling you why I think that she's my first choice.
All right. I also agree. They're both outstanding candidates. My first choice, too, would be Dr. Cretia. Was that Cretia? Yeah. And one of the things, she just has such a very broad range of experience. I loved how she was just so well versed in just the standards, the narrative of the Committee on Accreditation, and also she just linked everything together, from the teacher candidate to the school, to the district, to the student, to the parents, and just framed it really well. And in terms of the third question, the transition into the new system, I appreciated just her collaborative spirit, and also how she emphasized everything works together in terms of these outcomes. They're all linked. You can't just see them in isolation of one another. And yeah.
Okay. And I actually agree with both of you for all the reasons that you mentioned. And my first choice for recommendation would be Dr. Cretia, and I especially loved how thoughtful she is about the work that we're doing, and how what she's doing right now at USC, and what she's done with credentials and accreditation for a part of her career, but also every position that she's had, and how it all ties together, where she can bring in that perspective in a very broad fashion. And I enjoyed listening to her, because she articulated everything that I feel, in the time that these standards came out, and sort of like what our aspirations are. I feel like she encapsulated that so beautifully. So she would be my first choice, and I would also, moving on to Kevin Taylor, I'm also very impressed with him, and he also brought also a sense of collaboration, and I would like to see him contribute on some level, and perhaps having him offering him a position as alternate, and hopefully he'll accept it, because I do think that his background and his experiences with his students and his contributions to the community and his passion for social justice. That's something that that stood out for me with the examples that he gave, and I was very impressed with him.
I agree with that, and I think he would be a great alternate as well.
I too agree to put him on the alternate list. Mm-hmm. Recommendation.
Okay, so for IHE, recommending Dr. Kreisha for the position that's opening up for IHE, and Dr. Kevin Taylor as an alternate. Correct.
I second that.
Do we have a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. I was going to say anonymously. Unanimously. Okay. We do the same process for the next four candidates. Perhaps your, if you'd like to rank which two would you would like to appoint, and then if you have a preference for an alternate or two alternates.
Okay.
And we'll start with Kevin again.
Okay, this was a much harder decision because, again, they're all very good candidates. Two of them have experience on the COA, but that shouldn't be a deciding thing. But I think being on the COA and having experience on it is obviously beneficial because they have experience on it. But despite that, the other two also are really strong candidates, and actually I was very impressed by Miss Amos.
Amos?
Yeah. I was very impressed by her background. And I don't know about in terms of the four, actually, I think she'd probably be my first choice of these four. I don't know about number two right now, but okay. Maybe after when we come back, because a little bit of time to process. But actually, I thought her background, because of her work in an urban setting with from ELs to really honors students in urban and suburban schools. She works in the Cal TPA and APA. She has experience, not on the COA itself, but she's worked with working with the teacher induction programs, and she has obviously experience with it using the work from the COA, and she says she strongly believes in the system of the COA and the work the COA has produced, and also I believe she'll also bring good diversity to the group. So that's my first choice. I don't know about second right now, but she's my first of the four.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have two first choices right now. Katrina and Cynthia. And I'll start off with Cynthia. I agree, just in terms of her experience with induction, her experience as an administrator. She's a part of several think tanks, involved with the Cal APA. She knows, the standards, what's involved and what, candidate preparation entails. In terms of the third question, again, in terms of the transition to the new system, she sees the benefits of this new system, why the system has changed. how it's more personalized, and more efficient, and it's this, more subjective. It's this individualized program that really takes into account quality teacher preparation. In terms of both candidates, why they're my number ones, I don't know. I'm sure both of you looked over their cover letters. I thought both of their cover letters were just so powerful. Cynthia, focused on, just the purposes of the Committee on Accreditation. And whereas Katrina really focused on her own personal experience, and how, it's not about, luck and privilege, but opportunity and equity for all students. Which also brings me to Katrina and why she's on my number one list as well. I just think she really brought her personal experience and background front and center, and also just the wealth of experience too in terms of teacher induction, being involved in initiatives with the Common Core, the new standards for the Committee on Accreditation and so forth, her energy, I could feel it through the screen, just in terms of how, everybody can do this, this transition to the new system. This is possible. It's time for us to do this, and to meet this head on. She even highlighted specific standards, that we should focus on in terms of teacher preparation.
Okay, so, my number one is Katrina, and my number two is Cynthia. And for the reasons that you all mentioned, and and not to take away anything from Callie and James, who know a lot, were fantastic. What separated Katrina and Cynthia for me, one was, again, they're all passionate educators, all four of them. Katrina, there's the geographic factor, which I think is incredibly important. Just Sweetwater itself and all of the challenges and the turnarounds that they've gone through. I was very impressed with how she took the standards and created a program, using the standards, and that's just just an amazing accomplishment. I also enjoyed hearing her citing the specific standards and, the application therein. The cover letter was also said a lot about her, and that was sort of confirmed with the interview. And so I saw her as my number one, and Cynthia my number two. Her background, very broad, also background in urban education. The things that she focuses in on, her priorities with the type of work that she's doing in the LA Unified School District. And as far as, again, Katrina 1 and Cynthia 2 would be my recommendation. Or 2 and 1. Those would be my two slots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess number 2. Actually, I was thinking number 2 was probably going to be Katrina, even for me. I actually wrote on my notes, she's from San Diego, when you said the geographic distribution, and that's the only person who's not an LA County person. So to me, that could or should be a factor, considering, that we need representation from everyone in the state of California. And I would be fine with her being number 2 choice.
Should we make a motion for the recommendation, and then we'll move on to alternates? Okay. So a motion to recommend Katrina. Is that Jakowski? God, it sounds so easy. Okay, Jakowski and Cynthia Amos for appointment to the Committee on Accreditation. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And 2 alternates, 1 alternate?
You could do as many as you'd like at this point. Right now we have 3 with 1 going off in 18, so that would leave us with 2. So you could do 1 or both.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, as we said before, the other 2 candidates were strong as well. And it also says something that they want to continue with the Committee on Accreditation. That speaks volumes. So I would make a motion to recommend Kelly Scon and James Webb as alternates to the Committee on Accreditation.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so we will recommend James Webb and Kelly Scon as alternates for the Committee on Accreditation.
All right. Great. So I think we just need to adjourn.
This adjourns the ad hoc committee for the Committee on Accreditation appointments.